to do more deals, but your current sphere is not big enough. What are you going to do? Well, you need to make new friends. So the best way to do that is through cold calling. I use RedX to call expireds, for sale by owners, for rent by owners, circle prospect, and you can too. Go to theredx.com/fight club and get your setup fee waived. This is a series called Better Call Saul, where we discuss, normally we discuss what is possible, that if it were impossible, or if it were what is impossible, that if it were possible. But today we are going to be talking about how standards of practice will change based on this market. And here with me today is my co-host, Rachel Rio, broker owner of Rachel Real Estate in Chicago. Rachel's been an agent for 18 years and been on the Pro Standards Committee for 8 of those years, currently serving as the chair. She is passionately nerdy about all real estate rules. She will quote them for you. And Rachel?
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
And then together with us today is Saul Klein, the godfather of real estate technology. Saul has been licensed to sell real estate for over 47 years, was originally a team member of Realtor.com and creator of a National Association of Realtors technology certification, which we now know as ePro. He's personally responsible for the first 500,000 listings to be displayed to the public on Realtor.com, and spearheaded listing syndication, which is the distribution of your listings to the consumer over the internet. Welcome, Saul, and today we're going to dive into the topic. Who wants to start? Saul, start us out.
Saul, give us some context.
Yeah, great to see you guys. Well, we were just kind of talking. We always like to talk about what's currently possible and what's impossible, so we can get people thinking about what's impossible that might be possible, and they can start to change their business before they're forced to change their business, right? That's kind of our thought about this. But you guys came up with this idea that, this is a changing market because of changing economics and changing dynamics. So some of the things that people do in offer presentation and listing presentations and some of the ways that people conduct business might change when there's a change in the market. And
plus with the turnover that we have in our industry.
I was just going to say that. We've got all kinds of new agents that have joined the market the last maybe year or so that got in when everything was going gangbusters due to COVID. And none of these agents have ever heard of a price reduction, don't know how to ask for one.
Price improvement, Rachel.
Right, price improvement, reposition, whatever the heck you want to call it. They've never been through that. So they don't know what to do when you have a house that's been on the market for 5 whole days. Oh my God, they're freaking out. What do I do? So they've never been through that.
Exactly.
Yes, and you were talking to us about a recent case that you were involved in and some of the interesting aspects. And that kind of got us on this subject.
Right, exactly.
How things change, what the knowledge base is, what are buyers' expectations, what are sellers' expectations, and again, then how might that change with the economy? So I'll start off with one in particular is when you write up an offer, you usually give the seller a certain period of time to respond.
Right.
Now, that response period, there actually should be some thought in that response period, but I would bet that a lot of what people utilize is merely rote. It's what they learned, not based on anything other than when they learned how to fill the contract out. They learned that 24 hours should go in that box
or whatever.
Do your contracts?
What they learned.
Do the contracts that you guys use have a space in there for a deadline for presentation?
Date
for offer?
They do. Okay. Yeah, we don't have that at all on ours. And it's very rare that a buyer puts a deadline on an offer. So
what happens? It's unopened forever.
It's out there until either the buyer rescinds it or the seller accepts it.
What?
So we were always afraid of that, because if I put an offer out there and it's not rescinded, who knows if it really stays open for let's throw statute of limitations out, some period of time, a year or so, the seller might come back and say, you made this offer. I mean, we're just
all kinds of crazy things could happen. Right.
But in the market,
say it's a multiple offer and they go under contract with buyer A, that falls through. They go under contract with buyer B, that falls through. They get to you down the road. They call you up and go, hey, we're accepting your offer. And you go, wait a minute, holy crap, I bought something else. Right. I bought something else 6 months ago.
And given what we just went through, where if I'm writing a
Any
contract
one
for
person could have multiple offers sitting out there at any given point in time.
Yeah, but even so, like, okay, so we know that every house was going to have multiple offers on it. And I wanted to know now. I didn't want to wait. Like, how do
Right.
I know as the agent when to follow up if there's no deadline?
Right. It's when I write an offer in this particular market where we've had all the crazy going on in the COVID market, it's here's the offer for my client. Can you please A, confirm receipt, and B, let me know what the anticipated time frame for a response is.
You just
And if they
asked
come
that
back and
did they
you have
respond?
to ask it. No, they don't ever respond, but that's a whole nother question. It's a whole nother story. So
Well,
if my
another thing,
client
could it be in
continues
the
to look, then we have to rescind that offer if they choose to move on to something else.
Now, I don't actually mind there not being an expiration date. And here's why. Because you guys know, especially in this market that we had, that I think that the buyers should be able to offer on multiple houses because their chances of getting them recently was really low. Whereas before, and this is to your point, Saul, like as the market changes, your offer strategy as the buyer agent changes and as the listing agent changes. But if I'm in the market that we were in, the buyers were writing 5, 10, 15 offers. I would rather not have a contract deadline. And then it's like we write on a couple of houses. The buyer writes on a couple of houses and then just rescinds after one gets accepted. Whoever accepts
Right.
first.
And there's
yeah.
And I could see your point in that in a crazy market, absolutely. But then you have to worry, you have to be concerned with the fact that the contract has a stipulation there that says you're acting in good faith. So that
I am acting
which
in
means
good faith.
Well, you're acting in good faith if
According
you're
to-
not disclosing that you're writing multiple offers on multiple properties and you just throw a bunch of offers out there and don't say anything, you're not acting in good faith.
The seller doesn't
because
have
in theory
to disclose.
you don't.
No, but
They
you
don't have
bring
to
up,
disclose what.
so you make the point. You can do anything you want. You just need to be transparent and disclose it.
The seller
Right,
doesn't
right.
have to be
They don't have to do what?
anything. They don't have to do anything.
Sure they do.
No, but we're talking. So we'll come
They
back
do
to the
have to
seller.
disclose.
Talk
Yeah,
about
they
the
have to
buyer
disclose.
Okay.
making multiple offers.
Okay.
Just making right. So if the buyer is going to make buyer can make multiple offers. Every time they make an offer, they're potentially on the hook. If you make 25 offers on properties and they're just plain old contracts and it's fill in the blanks by the realtor and you make 25 of them and those 25 get accepted, you're on the hook for 25 offers.
Exactly.
Now, if you said, here's my offer, and then you had an attorney help you with the paragraph to explain this, and
yes.
the realtors are not authorized to practice law. Now we're talking about practicing law within the contract itself, but you can have this done, and where you could say, okay, I'm making 25 offers. And as soon as one offer is accepted, I have the right to notify you within 24 hours that that offer was accepted, and then your offer is deemed revoked, right? I mean, that would be the
But isn't in the most of the
Exactly.
contracts, it's like time is of the essence, and who's to say what the essence is?
Well, if you go to, and I want to say it's in the code, but don't quote me, where it says in a reasonable, as soon as reasonably possible. So if you receive an offer at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you're out in the middle of a dinner appointment, as soon as you're done with dinner, that's as soon as reasonably possible. I don't think anyone expects you to get up from the middle of your plate that just got put on the table to go present an offer. As soon as reasonably possible.
Well, but here's the point. They could still sue you. So my strategy was always, the first chance I get, it's reasonable. I can defend that much easier than waiting 5 hours and say, hey, that was reasonable 5 hours. If I did
or shoot a quick message and say, or shoot a quick message to the agent who submitted it and say, hey, I received your offer. I just sat down to dinner. I'm going to call my client as soon as I'm done. It'll be about an hour and I'll get right back to you. Exactly. And then do the same with your buyer
But going
client.
back to like our original point of the deadline. So these deadlines change based on the market, right? So if we're in a market that we just had, we want to expedite the deadline. Like even if, let me ask you guys this.
If you represent the buyer, right? If you represent the buyer,
and if you're the seller, you want to extend it forever. So if you're okay, so you're the buyer agent. In the listing, in the agent remarks, it says, this is I saw this 4 billion times. All offers will be looked at. Let's say it's Friday. All offers will be looked at on Monday by 8 p.m. But the seller reserves the right to accept any offer at any time.
Yep.
And you're
Absolutely.
like, okay, well then I want what is the price that would cause them to accept the offer? And I want to know about my offer, my client's offer tonight. I don't want to wait until Monday.
Well, and if you put a deadline in that offer, to your earlier point, Saul, when you got an offer floating out there for a year, maybe if you put a deadline in that offer and that deadline comes and goes, your offer is now void. It doesn't exist anymore. So now it's no longer
So
hanging
that's
out
your
there.
answer.
Well, so if you're putting a deadline on something in that particular situation, there's nothing that prohibits a seller from changing their mind and saying, hey, I'm going to list on Friday. I'm going to review everything on Monday. But if I get something that just blows everything else out of the water on Saturday afternoon, I reserve the right to take it. A seller can change their mind at any time, even if they
But
don't
the
add that
buyer
into the
can't?
broker remarks.
No,
just-
The buyer can too.
The buyer can too.
So
Right,
then
that's
we're
all
back
based
to
on-
them, huh, Saul?
This is based on transparency and disclosure, right? And just
Exactly.
everybody communication within the transaction process.
But that's
Right,
I just
right.
don't feel like, okay, so you're saying it's transparent and disclosing that we're looking at the offers on Monday, but we could take whatever we want, whenever we want. The buyer equivalent would be, well, I'm looking for a house. I'm putting in an offer on everything because you could do whatever you want. So I'll hopefully accept it. If not, then
Absolutely.
I'll rescind it when the time is of the essence.
Yeah,
You could
so-
absolutely do that as long as you're disclosing everything.
So you bring up another kind of a good point, and that is, when is an offer deemed accepted? And we go over this. So the offer has to be presented. If it's accepted, communication of that acceptance must come back to the buyer. So the seller can say, I have the right to accept, and they haven't
Come
accepted
back
your
or
offer.
received.
Well, it's communicated. However, you might
Communicated back.
How do you document communicated? But that was a very important point. So we present the offer. Upon acceptance, we used to get the seller to sign, and that's when time was of the essence. It didn't matter what time of day it was. I would run that thing right back to the buyer,
Yes.
so that we've got communication of acceptance and we have a deal.
Right.
If I go to sleep and get up and we don't communicate it and something else comes up, I can
Something
be
else
in
happens,
breach of my
you're
fiduciary
done.
duty.
Right. Well, and things
there-
like DocuSign.loop, all of these electronic signatures,
You
if you
can
set
see.
them up correctly, well, you can set it up so that the last person that signs it, then once they sign it, everybody gets a copy after that. So then it's the second that seller signs, everyone
get
has
it.
it back. Now it's communicated, it's been delivered, everybody's got it.
So
And that's when it's been officially accepted.
yeah, so the business practice here that we're talking about that's changing is not only number of offers, but the time, the expiration date of the offers. Also, too, some of the terms of the contract, like contingencies are changing. Like, what is it contingent
Absolutely.
on? Could it be some of these agents have never seen it contingent on another house selling?
Right,
Or
absolutely.
right? Or
Mhm.
inspections. I mean,
Right.
some have no
Right. Because people
idea.
were waiving everything. Right. They were waiving everything for a while.
So market conditions can change the standards and the expectations of customers and clients when you're dealing with them. And so, because let's go back to, we've got a brand new crop of people in the industry who've never had to go through this. So they
Right.
don't necessarily know that these things need to be done this way.
And I think
Absolutely.
it also changes the way you negotiate based on who you're representing, the buyer or the seller.
Absolutely.
And I think it's hard if you're an agent that only sells a few houses a year to stay in tune with the fluctuation of the market. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Things
So
change too much.
but
And
also
if you're out of touch even the littlest bit, you're not getting the nuance of things that are changing as they're changing.
except that this is 90% of the agents.
Well, that's a sure
Right.
large, yeah, it's a big number.
The big chunk. And then you look at the
So-
fact that when these new agents here, at least in the state of Illinois, when these new agents are licensed, they go through pre-licensing, which we know what the quality of that is. 9 out of 10 take a class from an online, provider, which means they're not getting any of the detailed information that you would need for your specific market. And then they have two
or the
2
teacher
years.
that's teaching in person
Right.
hasn't done a deal in
Right.
400 years, which
Right.
also
There's very few
is
very few
equivalent.
exceptions to that. Right. Very
Yes.
few exceptions to that. So you've got those newly licensed agents who haven't learned anything about the practice of real estate, and they now have 2 years to do their post licensing because it only has to be done prior to their first renewal period. So they could effectively go 2 years with zero training on how to actually function in a market. Yeah, they've read the book and yeah, they've gone through that, but we know that about 90% of what you learn in the book, you're not using on a daily basis. It's license law stuff.
They're not
Yeah.
practicing
So they-
real estate on a daily basis though either, period, no matter
No,
what.
no, they're not. Right.
And so much
But
of
it's
real
so
estate-
easy. So we'll just get our license and we'll wait 2 years and then we'll be good to go. It's fine.
So a lot of what you do in real estate is skill based. People
Yes.
might
Absolutely.
argue
It's
with
all
me,
stuff
but
that you learn
I
on an
believe
everyday
it's
basis. Right.
skill-based. Yeah, and
100%.
skills come with more practice. And so
You
the
have
more
to
you
hone
do
your
it,
skills. The
the
only
more
way
you
to do that is by doing it.
you're going to be better at it. So here's a situation. Let's say that properties are on the market 6 months to a year. Now you might say that'll never happen, but I can tell you that has happened
Yeah,
Oh,
and
it
it
has.
will happen again.
it will.
It'll-
We used
So
to
let's
have
say
year
a property-
contracts.
So a year, that's right. So it's like 6 months to a year. That's, let's say, average market time is 9 months.
Right.
And so somebody puts their property on the market. Now, remember, also, if I make an offer, I want something that says that offer is revoked, if not accepted, at some period of time. So I just don't have something floating out there.
10
right?
minutes from
Right,
now.
right.
So if it's a
Yeah.
9-month listing, I might come in with an offer representing a buyer saying, we're going to pay you this price, could be a generous price, and we're going to give you 2 weeks to make up your mind. Or we're going to give you this price. We want your decision right now.
Right now. Right.
And that might be in the seller's best interest to take that offer right then. And so what
Yep.
would change the seller's reception to something like that? Market conditions.
Right.
That's our
Absolutely.
point. Market conditions change the way we practice.
But
And
I
so-
think too, as the market changes, like you had alluded to, is your listing agreement time frame could change. I mean, in this past market, there were some cases we were only doing a listing agreement for a week. But there's been in the last 10 years times when we've done year-long listing agreements.
Yeah.
I even had a listing that was a year and a half before.
Mhm. Right. Right.
I remember, like, people wouldn't even want to take a listing for 90 days. If you couldn't get a 6-month listing, you didn't want to take that listing
Right.
and waste your time with that thing because you spent money
Right.
and time. And yeah, I can see in the market over the last couple of years, you take a weekly listing, no problem. I'll take that listing for a week.
Oh yeah,
Because
that
I'll
was the
get it
selling
in.
point that we did was like, look, it's a week long. Like, what do you have to lose? Like,
You have nothing to lose.
the data says I can get you more money than you can get yourself, net you more. Why wouldn't you try it?
Faster.
Like, it's not gonna hurt you, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
you don't have to accept the offer that comes in.
Right.
Although if it's to the price and terms, you might be liable for
Right.
commission, but you can
You're
even waive
right.
that.
If it's full price cash, no contingencies, then you're paying it. You know,
Yeah,
you're
but,
paying the
you know,
brokerage fee.
that's-
But
That's
how
the
often does that
risk.
happen? Well, and how often do you waive every contingency, walk in with cash at list price or more?
Well, one of the big things that because of the market, I think is going to change, and I think we actually all agree on this, is the role that real estate agents play in the buyers and with the buyers and sellers. As
Right.
our practice now or before was, or most recently was, all these agents were popping in and just like pop-tarting around, showing houses, whatever. They
Yep.
couldn't tell us from each other, right? And so it's
Right,
like, well, y'all
right.
are the same, you do the same thing, whatever. But now it's going to be
This
very
is where you have your
specific.
opportunity to differentiate yourself also.
Exactly.
To be
And
able
we-
to take that
yeah.
data and show the difference between 6 months
Between-
ago and now.
And
how
when-
things have changed.
There was a time I remember where we would have this pre-licensing or pre-licensing. Geez, you got me on a roll. I'm all fired up. This pre-listing package where it was like we would we would do a pre-inspection, we would do a consultation for staging, we would do all these things.
Right.
And then it was like, oh well, we're not going to do any of that because it doesn't matter.
Well,
Yeah.
all that went out the window for a period of time, but then what took its place was holding this crap together. Once you got an offer and you sifted
Yeah.
through 25 offers, your work went from before it went on the market to now,
To
okay, we're
after.
under contract, and now this is when all hell breaks loose. You know, you're
Yeah,
holding stuff
buyer's
together.
remorse.
You got buyer's remorse. You got all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
But yeah,
So
so I think
The amount of
practice
time we
that's
spend is very similar. It's just in a different way,
in a different way.
depending on the market.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true. But I also think that we as agents are going to shift more towards a consultation, which
Yes.
will bring back, like you saying, a lot more pre-work on the agent's part. And I remember a time when we would say, look, our list price to sale price ratio is higher than everybody else. And that meant
Yes.
something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the market of the last decade almost has been an anomaly.
Yeah.
Right? It's been different than it was before. And because of the nature of the business where you have so much of an influx of new talent, you've got a situation where
Is
a lot
talent
of
the right word?
No, but I use it and I'm being generous to it.
Okay.
You're being generous today. Saul's in a good mood today, so he's going to call him talent.
That's what we call the
love it.
people on the dating sites. Talent. Okay.
Talent.
Then you talk to them, they can't complete a sentence. Like, whoo,
We
Lord.
use that. You use that very tongue in cheek. I know.
Yes. Okay. Carry on.
So the market conditions change the way we practice, change people's expectations of professionalism, even is what we would
Yeah,
consider
absolutely.
professional.
Right.
And for a major portion of our talent pool, of our population of realtors, there's a lot of learning that needs to go on here in the next couple of years.
And a lot more understanding at what it costs to take a listing. What is that business cost? What do you have to do? What does it cost to take a buyer? Like, it'll begin to shift where it's more expensive. It's always been more expensive to take a buyer, but it could easily shift to be more expensive to take a listing.
Well, it used to be.
Sure. I got a buyer right now. I'm making about 3 cents an hour. So it's been about
we used to have a budget. We used to make a budget up for a listing. The part of the way you sold yourself to the seller was what you were going to spend on marketing.
Right.
So it did cost. It wasn't you take a listing, put it in the book, put it out into the ether, and somebody buys it, and that's it. No, and so we say list to last. If you really want to make money in real estate, you have to be a lister, and that's true. And it took more commitment, it took more time, it took a lot more to be a successful lister than it took to work with buyers. Right. Now that changes again based on economics and marketplace.
Because look at the last couple of COVID years of the market. I would say that the people that were listing properties were in a much better position than the people that were having to show properties and be one of 37 offers and 20 grand over list still isn't getting it done. So, it shifts based on the market.
I wonder too, what are you guys seeing that, like, the old way of doing business some of that will stay, but then there will open up other ways of doing business and like the online bidding thing that we started doing. Like, we were the only ones like in our market, and like other opportunities like that, right? Like the iBuyers came. So then you had that. You always had investor buyers, but then those iBuyers were buying new houses, whereas regular investor buyers bought different, right? You have different types of iBuyers. What else do you think, like, what other strategies will this market bring out?
Well, you mean this new changing market. So I believe that consumers are ready to be treated as investors. And so,
really?
Yeah. When I say treated as investors, that means have enough information to make informed decisions.
You think that the emotion? No, it's an emotional purchase.
No, I believe for some people, I believe that's changing. I believe that's a paradigm shift. And so particularly so over time, over the next couple of years, you'll see where buyers, and when we see it all the time, buyers anybody who buys anything wants more information, right? They all want more information. I won't buy a stove. My wife went out and bought a new refrigerator. Janie went out and bought a new refrigerator, and she made a spreadsheet. And she put it on the next door on the neighborhood. She got like 20 responses, and now, consumers want more.
But she feels good about her refrigerator her purchase.
And Consumer's Guide wouldn't have made the splash that it made if people didn't want more information.
I don't think it takes away or negates the need for the emotional buy, though.
Well, I didn't say that it takes away the need for the emotion, although who knows what emotion the newer generations have, or emotions towards what, or where the loyalty is, or whether or not they believe that owning is the best. I mean, it's like, we're talking about our
I think you have a lot of our generation it has that emotional piece to it. I think you have a lot of the younger generations now that are coming up and buying houses that are less emotional to the house.
Yeah,
and
but
are
they're
looking at
buying
just
like above their parents.
Well,
They're not buying like starter homes anymore, a lot of them.
It depends. I mean, I still see a whole lot of starter homes in my market too, but I think you see the focus for a lot of these younger people is I want to do things and not necessarily I want to spend my money on things and not housing or cars or stuff that's not fun. They want to spend it on experiences, so they're less likely to be as emotionally attached to a
and I
property
think
as
the emo- and I
older
I'm not
us
so
older
sure
people.
that the emotion is also based on market conditions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I bought my first house, and I bought that house not because I was in love with the house, but
Right.
because it was the only one that was available I could afford. And it had
Yep.
a VA loan on it. I mean, that's it. That's why I wrote the offer
I'm
on
going to
that
tell you.
house.
Right.
I
I'm going to
didn't
tell you,
love
my
the
parents, there's
house.
no way my parents loved a house that had a fire and was filled with dog pee. I mean, there's just no way. Nobody loved that. It was what they could
In
afford.
the late 70s, there was a really tight market. And I remember you couldn't even find properties to show people. There was we call them hot sheets, and we lived off these hot sheets because the stuff would come onto the market. And I actually sold a condo where the buyer couldn't get in. The buyer couldn't get in to look at the property, and the way they decided that they would let me write the offer on the properties, they stood outside the kitchen window and jumped up and looked in the window. Okay,
Really? We'll take it. It's good enough. The
They
kitchen's the biggest money pit anyway.
That was it. They
If
were
that's
looking
good,
at
it
the kitchen,
passes.
right? They weren't emotionally attached to that thing because the market conditions wouldn't let you go out and try to buy a house based on your emotions, right?
Very
So
true.
that changes back, and it's all part of this theme we're talking about is market conditions change a lot of aspects of the buying and selling of real estate, from the practitioner to the seller to the buyer themselves.
So
that's why we have to be psychiatrists and psychologists at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're an agent.
Right.
Let's wrap up this thought. So you're an agent in the marketplace. You want to stay involved. So where do you go to like learn about the market conditions? If you're an agent that you're normal, right? Like you don't sell a ton. Like, where do you think's the best place to go?
For market information? Well, for me, I can get it right from my MLS. And I know every MLS in the country now publishes these statistics on the real important things like the inventory, the average days on market, the median price. And this is published weekly by just about every MLS in the country.
Sometimes every 24 hours.
I started collecting them weekly, just putting them together. And so you put 4 or 5 weeks together and you just keep doing this every week, you'll start to see patterns.
Right.
Things start to emerge that you don't see. So the best place I would go would be to my multiple listing service, to my association. I would sign. A lot of these have Twitter feeds and they have LinkedIn feeds and Facebook, and you read. So all that stuff relevant to your market is available through your real estate association and or MLS. And that's where I would start. And then I'd read some of the publications out there. I pay attention to the big publications. I read Brad Inman and Real Estate Trends and a couple of blogs that I follow. And then there's groups on Facebook, and you have to be real careful there because you get a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Some of these groups.
What's your Facebook group?
And we have, it's called Real Talk, Real Towns, Real Talk. And it's a little bit different than most of the rest because we've got just a cadre of people who have been around and doing this for many, many years and don't stand for the nonsense of, somebody posting information that's just not true.
Right.
And people don't necessarily post this because things that aren't true because intentionally they don't know this.
They're just misinformed. No, they're completely misinformed because they haven't taken the time to invest their time into really good training, learning how to use the resources that the MLSs and the different boards and different websites have. That is super important to be able to give your clients the right guidance that they need to get through different markets.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, if people want to get a hold of you, if they have a referral in Chicago or they want to talk to you, what's the best way?
Best way to reach me is by email at rreal@dealwithreal.com or on cell at 630-542-8688.
Awesome. And Saul, if people want to get a hold of you.
thedataadvocate.com, THE, thedataadvocate.com, or the data advocates. You can make that plural if you like, or Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor. Saul at bettercallsaul.realtor. I just watched that series. Janie and I just watched
Better
that.
Call
Did
Saul.
you?
We actually
I
watched
gotta watch
Breaking
it.
Bad. We watched the whole thing.
So
We've never
Oh,
done
yeah.
it. It was really fun.
Did you like it?
Yeah, we had a great time. It was really fun watching it.
Oh,
I particularly liked it every
excellent
time.
show.
Every time somebody would say Saul, right, we got to get my attention. You know?
I love
No,
it.
it's, a,
All
it's one of
right.
the best shows on TV.
It is good. Thanks
Good
for
to
being
see
on,
you
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Hi guys, Monica Weakley here. You know how you're supposed to post about real estate every single day on Facebook? Yes, you do. And the reason is, if we don't remind our Facebook friends what we do for a living and how we help people, they will forget about it. We know it's our job to inform, educate, and demonstrate what we do for a living. Well, I'm coaching agents all around the country, and they understand that, but they're not doing it. And I ask them, why aren't you doing it? Probably just like you. And they said, Monica, we don't know what to post. Can we just borrow your stuff? Because I love creating Facebook posts. And these can often be used over on Instagram as well. So I said yes, and people were borrowing my stuff. So I created finally a product that you can sign up for free. It is free, guys. There is no reason for you not to sign up for this. It's ghostposter.com, GHOSTPOSTR, no E in there, just TR.com. And what you're going to get is you're going to get a Facebook posting idea to your email every single day. So not only do you have this great idea, but you've been reminded, oh yeah, I need to post. And that's Monday through Friday. And if you don't love the post, or you think, gosh, I'd like something else, well, you're also going to get access to a library of over 600 different posts for you to choose from by category. You're going to love it. Go sign up, ghostposter.com. Don't waste a minute. And then be sure to join the private Facebook group. All right, I'll see you in there.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a podcast.